Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. I had a hard time getting on. Every time I tried to get on, it said that StreamYard had a high traffic. So I guess a lot of people must be on here chattering. Well, I'm glad I finally made it on. I didn't give up, I kept trying. Well, y'all, boy, this is some serious breaking news right here. Do you know I did a video? Probably it was more like the first few weeks of the war. And Israel was trying to find out where Iran was keeping their weapons because, they keep everything underground. And they were bombing all these random locations, but they were not hitting any of Iran's ammo. Well, last week, Iran met with Russia and China. And they said they hit these Israeli sites with perfect precision. So I believe, and I'm not, I'm just telling you what I think happened. I think at this meeting, Russia and China found out where all of Israel's ammo was and gave it to Iran. That's what I believe happened. Y'all, they took out 50,000 tons of Israeli ammo. They only got like 10% left. You can't tell me somebody didn't tip. Somebody had a map of where, because they said they struck these sites perfectly. So somebody had to figure it out and gave it to Iran. That's what I'm thinking. But the fact that they met with Russia and China just 1 week before this happened, that speaks volumes right there. That speaks volumes. Do you know it was China that gave Iran a map of where all US military sites and all US military locations, like embassies and stuff, they gave them a whole map. How do you think Iran took out all of these bases? Because they were given information by China. China was able to map where every last base was, and Iran went in there with perfect precision and took every single one out. So, what Israel wanted for Iran happened to them. And they're trying hard not to let it come out in the news here, y'all. I got it from foreign news. I got it from foreign news. So that right there. Now, the only one that did talk about it was Laura Ingraham, and I got the clip from her show where she spoke about how the IDF headquarters got taken out, their headquarters and all of the locations where they were hiding their ammunition all got taken out, y'all. Now, you can't tell me that the Most High is not guiding Iran. You can't tell me he's not. He's using Iran, he's using them. And we all know what's going to happen to all armies at the end of the war. They all get destroyed, all of them. So, look, y'all, this is deep. This is deep. Woo, 50,000 tons of ammo just destroyed, like Donald Trump said, obliterated. You're going to use your word, Donald Trump, obliterated. Unbelievable, y'all. So let's get into it. Now, the first video, you're going to hear about this meeting. So, what Iran did, they flew to Russia. Their foreign minister flew to Russia. And then immediately after that meeting, he flew to China and met with China. And then all of a sudden, this happens. Y'all, this is no way this is a coincidence. No way. I don't believe in that anyway, but I'm just saying. All right. Yeah, so it doesn't leave Israel with very much to fight with now. And a lot of people are saying they have lost. They have lost. They don't have nothing to fight with. They really can't continue to bomb Lebanon like they were. They really can't do anything. What are you going to do with 10% of your ammo. And it's not like they can get it from somewhere else because the US ain't got crap either. So it's not like they can get more from the US. They can't because the US don't hardly have nothing. Maybe y'all should have made nice with a lot more people on this earth. You know what I mean? But you didn't. So that's your problem. All right. Let me go ahead and share. Before I do that, I do want to give you a reminder. The 12 Tribe on Earth new Botana Oil Shampoo, Deep Conditioner, and Leave-In Conditioner is still on sale. So you have today and tomorrow to grab this up if you really want it before it goes to the regular price. All right. So it is taking a nice discount off. And because, it's over $35, you're not even getting hit with shipping charges. So you're really getting the 35% off plus free shipping. So you can't beat that. So grab yours today. It's on Etsy. And I have all of the information in my community tab. Make sure you use second year to get your discount, or you can just use the link that I have in the community tab, and that'll give you the automatic discount. All right, y'all. Let me what we are here for. All right, y'all. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Man, this is huge. This is huge. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
This is huge breaking news coming in. Iran is playing the real 4D chess right now. Today, Iran's foreign minister arrived in Russia to meet Putin and strengthen ties between the two countries. And a few days ago, he was in China doing the same. Both are Iran's biggest allies and the biggest rivals of America. And Iran is doing all of this while rejecting direct talks with the US. And very important thing to understand is Trump said Iran can call him, but Iran is calling everyone except America. And Russia and China are two permanent members of the UN Security Council, major military powers, and key economic partners for Tehran. By visiting both capitals back to back, Iran is showing that it has other options besides Washington. It is trying to build diplomatic support, protect trade routes, and gain leverage before any future negotiations. But at the same time, this strategy carries risks. Closer alignment with Moscow and Beijing may anger Washington further and increase sanctions or military pressure. But from Iran's view, it creates a stronger negotiating position. So right now, Iran is not saying no to diplomacy forever. It is saying it wants to choose the timing, the partners, and the terms before dealing with the U.S. Make sure to follow for latest updates.
Trey, I know they don't want you to show it, but how badly was their version of the Pentagon, Israel's version of the Pentagon, hit by these attacks?
I'm going to have my cameraman just pan up to this building here that is on the compound of the Kiryat. And you can see these are likely offices. The building just next to it I've been in many times. But there is significant damage. They have teams there just trying to ensure that no one was inside at the time. Likely when the missile attack happened, any senior officials that would have been inside their version of the Pentagon would have been underground. But there is damage to it. And again, this just speaks to the types of targets that the Iranians are hitting. They are targeting military installations. And this is expected to escalate because they have advanced missiles. We have seen them provide the Russians with these very missiles that they are using against Ukraine. Now they are using these advanced ballistic missiles to target Israel. And again, despite the fact that there is some advanced missile defense systems that are on the ground here, from David's Sling to the Arrow 2 and 3 system, and the American systems, the Patriot system and the THAAD system, it is not enough to stop this incoming fire. And when we were live earlier today around the 2 p.m. hour, it was so intense in Tel Aviv that they were not able to shoot down the missiles with these advanced systems. And as the missiles kept slipping past the The air defense, they started to use smaller systems in an attempt to shoot them down, and we saw missiles slamming into the ground, causing significant damage and killing at least one person. And so as we move forward here, it is very clear that the conflict that is erupting now between Israel and Iran is different than anything that the region has seen. And it is substantially different from the conflict that has been ongoing for more than 600 days between Israel and Hamas inside Gaza. These ballistic missiles make the rockets that were being fired from Gaza look like toys. It is causing significant damage, wiping entire apartment blocks off of the map.
So short that no resupply operation, however well resourced, can reverse the trajectory before it becomes irreversible. I want to address something directly that has been absent from most of the coverage of this situation, because I think the American media's framing of Washington's response is a political failure misses the operational reality entirely. The United States did not fail to resupply the Northern Front because of a lack of political will or a failure of alliance commitment. It failed because the operational conditions that Iran created in 48 hours made emergency resupply physically impossible within any timeline relevant to the front's survival. Understanding that distinction matters because it tells us something important about the nature of the strategic challenge that Iran has constructed. The standard American emergency military resupply pathway for Israel runs through Ben Gurion International Airport for air delivery and through Ashdod and Haifa ports for sea delivery. The Iranian campaign that destroyed the Northern Front's ammunition depots was preceded by and conducted in coordination with the port and airfield strikes that I analyzed in previous breakdowns. By the time the depot destruction campaign was complete and Washington's assessment teams had determined that emergency resupply was operationally necessary, the receiving infrastructure through which that resupply would flow had already been rendered non-functional. The airlift option, the fastest available pathway for emergency precision munitions. Delivery requires a functional receiving airfield with adequate runway length, cargo handling equipment, fuel availability, and security environment to operate heavy lift aircraft safely. Ben Gurion's runway was cratered before the depot campaign began. Raoni Airport was non-functional. The military airfields with adequate cargo capacity were destroyed in the base strikes. American military engineers assessed runway repair timelines at the least damaged facility at a minimum of 14 days under optimal conditions. Optimal conditions meaning no follow-on strikes against repair operations, which the operational environment did not provide. The maritime option, the higher throughput pathway for bulk munitions delivery, requires functional port infrastructure. Ashdod and Haifa were non-functional. The improvised alternatives that American logistics planners assessed, beach landing operations, helicopter sling load delivery, improvised transfer from vessels anchored offshore, each provide a fraction of a % of the throughput required to replace 50,000 tons of destroyed depot inventory within a militarily relevant time frame. What strikes me as particularly significant about this situation, and I want to be clear that this represents my own professional assessment rather than any official position, is the degree to which the Iranian operational planning anticipated and specifically defeated the American resupply response. The sequencing of the campaign port strikes first, base strikes second, depot strikes third was not random. It was designed to ensure that when the depot strikes created the resupply requirement, the infrastructure needed to execute that resupply had already been eliminated. The American response was defeated before it began, not because of American failures and execution, but because the operational environment had been specifically engineered to make the execution impossible. There is a question that I find myself returning to repeatedly in analyzing this conflict, because I think it gets at something fundamental about why the outcome of these 48 hours was strategically possible in a way that the Western analytical community consistently failed to anticipate. The question is this: what does it actually mean in operational terms for one side in a conflict to be genuinely self-reliant and for the other side to be genuinely dependent? And how does that difference express itself when the conflict reaches the kind of sustained intensity that tests the limits of both Iran's military capability in this conflict, the targeting intelligence, the weapon systems, the operational planning capacity, the logistics that sustain the campaign flows from a foundation built entirely within Iran's own borders through Iran's own industrial capacity? Funded by Iran's own resources and directed by Iran's own strategic judgment, no element of the operational campaign that destroyed the Northern Front's ammunition supply required the approval, the cooperation, or the continuing support of any external actor. Russia provided caliber missiles that enhanced the campaign's reach and penetration capability. China provided technology cooperation that enhanced guidance precision, but the decision to act, the timing of the action, the target selection, and the operational execution were entirely Iranian, subject to no external veto, no supply chain dependency, no political conditionality.
With a number that I need you to understand, not abstractly, but operationally, 50,000 tons. That is the weight of the ammunition stockpile that Iran destroyed in the past 24 hours in a strike against IDF forward arsenal infrastructure. 50,000 tons of artillery shells, tank rounds, mortar bombs, small arms ammunition, anti-tank missiles, air defense interceptors, and the full spectrum of munitions that a modern army requires to sustain combat operations across multiple simultaneous active fronts. Let me give you a sense of what 50,000 tons actually represents in operational terms, because I think the human mind, accustomed to thinking about ammunition in the context of individual rounds, individual magazines, individual weapons, struggles to translate a tonnage figure into operational reality. The United States Army consumed approximately 15,000 tons of ammunition per month during the height of combat operations in Iraq in 2004 and 2005, a period of intense urban warfare across multiple simultaneous fronts that placed extraordinary demands on American logistics. The Israeli Defense Forces, conducting combat operations across multiple active fronts simultaneously in a conflict of the intensity that the current engagement represents, consume ammunition at a rate that military logisticians estimate at somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 tons per month, depending on operational tempo.
Yes, that would be right, because back in 2025, Israel single-handedly, I think they fought like 5 different countries. You know, I tell you what, y'all, I want y'all to think about it. You know how in the Bible it says the Most High will clear off the land? If you don't have no ammunition to fight with, you can best believe that land is going to get cleared off. When you really think about what what you can, at this point, you're a sitting duck and you lost the majority of your weaponry. Yeah, see, that's one way to clear off land. You can best believe that, you know? So I'm going to get past some of these old dry ass men. Okay.
The real questions. How did Iran identify, target, and eliminate 90% of IDF supply routes inside a single coordinated operational campaign? What does the sequencing of that campaign reveal about the depth and duration of Iranian strategic planning? What does supply chain collapse actually mean in human and operational terms for 120,000 soldiers? The fuel mathematics, the ammunition arithmetic, the food timeline, and the point at which physical deprivation translates into military incapacity that no amount of tactical skill can overcome. Why was the United States, with all of its carrier groups and heavy lift aircraft and logistical infrastructure, unable to execute the emergency resupply operation that Israel's survival required? And what does that inability reveal about the true limits of American power projection in a genuinely contested operational environment? And finally, what comes next? Who holds the initiative now? And what does the Middle East look like on the other side of this collapse? If you have been looking for analysis that goes past the headline and into the operational reality, stay with me, because what comes next is where this story becomes genuinely consequential. The operational architecture of what Iran executed over these 5 days was not improvised. I want to make that absolutely clear, because the instinct in Western commentary is to attribute military success by non-Western actors to luck, to confusion on the other side, to some operational anomaly that explains away the result without requiring a fundamental revision of the underlying assumptions. That instinct is wrong in this case. What Iran executed was the product of years, and I do not use that word loosely, of systematic intelligence collection, target development, and operational planning. It was a 5-phase campaign in which each phase addressed a specific layer of the IDF logistics system, and in which the sequencing was designed with one explicit objective: to ensure that the destruction of each layer prevented any surviving layer from compensating. To understand why this campaign worked, you have to first understand what a modern army's supply chain actually looks like. The popular image, trucks driving to the front with boxes of ammunition, is approximately as accurate as describing a modern jet fighter as a flying machine with guns. A military logistics system is a complex, interdependent architecture with multiple nodes.
Just admit that Iran outfoxed you. They outfoxed Israel and they outfoxed the United States. Just freaking admit it. How did they get this? They were smart. Somebody did their homework. See, this is what military strategies are all about. You got somebody highly intelligent or a group that's highly intelligent in military strategies, and they can sit down and come up with ideas and then implement those ideas. But instead of doing that, the United States want to fire everybody and then use, really, it's racism, and you want to hide behind DEI, and what you're doing is really racist. Okay, we've seen this play out before. The bottom line is you got outfoxed by Iran. Just admit it. All this, how did they do this? How did, obviously, they did their homework. They did their research. They were able to locate where all of this ammo was across Israel, and they targeted and they got it right. Okay, that's something that y'all don't do. You want to go out there and throw some random bombs around. They did their homework. And I think y'all just can't accept that they outfoxed you in this whole war. Not only with the physical war, but also strategically. And even the social media war, they're kicking your ass. You have been upstaged. You need to just admit, y'all were not ready for this war. You ain't ready for prime time. And Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump heading the war, you couldn't have two worse people in charge of the war. You know, very bad people in high positions. That's all we got in the Trump administration. We got terrible people in high positions. That's about all we got. when it comes down to the Trump administration. Y'all ain't shit. That's why you lost the war and the world is seeing y'all ain't shit. Well, I have to give a high five to Iran. They did their homework and got the shit right. So, what are you going to do sitting over in that land surrounded by enemies? And how are you going to defend yourself? Because the U.S. can't resupply you. So, what are y'all going to do? They're in a lot of trouble right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, you don't want to admit the brown people outfoxed you over there because those are brown people too over in the Middle East. So them brown people outfoxed you. So much for them high IQs. Isn't Donald Trump always talking about somebody got a low IQ? Well, I tell you what, Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, and your whole administration, you have ran this country like low IQ people. So, and it shows. And I'm glad that you can't even hide. Donald Trump still try to hide behind lies and get on there. We obliterated them and we obliterated them. Like that's really so convincing that people believe that, Donald Trump. Nobody believes that shit. Yeah, I mean, Israel, you might as well surrender at this point. You 10%. That's all you got to fight with that's left. Y'all might as well go ahead and surrender for real. You don't have nothing to fight with. You can't even fight Lebanon anymore. Y'all can't fight nobody because if you use up that 10%, you really are screwed. US, who was your biggest supplier, can't even fend for themselves right now. And thanks to Donald Trump, he got in a war knowing, and Pete Hegseth, knowing you didn't have enough ammo, but y'all want us to believe y'all got all the brains, you got all the knowledge, you got all the smarts, and it's a load of bullshit. It's a load of bullshit. So anyway, y'all, I just wanted to update you on this because I knew this was explosive news. Explosive. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of things. Now, on tap, I have Donald Trump's health. Donald Trump recently went back to Walter Reed. They have kept this out of the news. It has leaked out. And his health is being questioned because Donald Trump seems to be going back and forth to Walter Reed, y'all, an awful lot. Even the residents of DC are capturing his helicopter going back and forth on their cameras. Okay, they said they hear that helicopter overhead taking him to Walter Reed all the time, and they're keeping it out of the media. So we're going to talk about that a little later. And we're also going to talk about Donald Trump's tariffs have been declared by a federal court as illegal. Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal. So we paying all these high prices, which Donald Trump's tariffs have everything to do with. We're paying all these high prices and we never really had to pay these high prices. But Donald Trump sent these tariffs out all over the globe illegally, leaving us with the bag to pay. And we've been paying like hell ever since. And they said the only ones that are getting a refund, tariff refund, are businesses and not the consumers. And it's the consumers that have been carrying the load in this country. That's why everything is astronomical. And it's a lot to do with those illegal tariffs that he put out. Now, the businesses are getting refunds, but not the people. And Donald Trump recently did an interview, y'all. He said he don't give a shit about the oil prices going up. He don't care if it hits $200 a barrel. This is what Donald Trump said. But if it hits $200 a barrel, gas is going to be double digits everywhere, all over this country for a gallon of gas. And this man is sitting there saying he don't care if it hits $200 per barrel. Boy, we know we got some idiots running this place for real. So, y'all, I will see you at 1:45. That's my next live. And don't forget to pick up your Botana oil products over on Etsy. Shalom, family.